All right, so now the fun part. Let's talk about actually implementing all of what we've talked about into a resistance training program for health so that your clients can, get to reap the benefits of everything that we've talked about. So I think this conversation for CCP coaches, nothing is going to be different from the standpoint of what we already talk about in terms of program design, assessing, program designing, and progressing. But there are a few key things that we really want to pull out and laser focus on to connect the dots between what you're prescribing and health outcomes.
Yeah. I just thought about this. We had a conversation on our CCP call a few weeks ago, and we went through like this practice of like, hey, it'd be fun to land on like, and it's going to be individual a bit for every coach, but land on like what is optimal for everything. What is optimal for aerobics? What is optimal for resistance? And then we kind of had that marker where in our brains we're like, we think we're trying to get everyone there, right? We might have a use case where someone's going to go over there or go over there based on their individual circumstances, but overarching, we want to get people there. And it wasn't that nuanced, like we went all the way around in this big circle and then eventually came back to, so do we all agree that we should be doing resistance training about 3 times per week with everyone? And that resistance training, we should probably be hitting probably every body part, right? Or every pattern in those sessions because it's only 3 times a week. So like an upper lower or like just doing biceps on one day probably isn't a good idea because we're only training 3 times per week. Do we all agree? It was like yep, that sounds awesome. So it's like, okay, let's say that optimally we want everyone to do 3 days of resistance training every week, and we want them to hit every pattern in each one of those training sessions. And then we're like, okay, now what does that look like for, I think I used the name Julie earlier. What does that look like for Julie now? And it's like, well, Julie's not doing anything right now. Okay, let's go through, how do we get her to 3 days and doing everything? Well, it's like, well, we just give it to her. And it's like, whoa, wait, maybe not, right? Like, what does it actually look like to meet Julie exactly where she is right now? Right? Schedule is kind of crazy. As a coach, we're sitting back and we're being like, well, you can just manipulate that and manipulate that, prioritize this, and let's roll. Let's go 3 days a week. But it's like maybe Julie's not ready to do that yet. But you need to make it really clear to Julie, this is the goal. This is what we're working toward. We're going to start with 1 day of resistance training for 4 weeks. I want you to do that 1 day of resistance. Then we have 2 days of aerobics, right? And then we're going to do 2 days. And then maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 12 months down the road, we're hitting our optimal now. We're doing 3 days of resistance training. We're doing everything. So I kind of just go through that thought experiment to say that, what does it actually mean to meet a client exactly where they are, right? And I know a lot of things are a part of this, understanding their goals, understanding their experiences and their capabilities and blah, 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 blah. But whatever, that all, it just means like we just need to understand where that person is right now. And we need to have in our brain what is our goal for them. And it's the 3 days. So I think that's really important as we go through these best practices is understanding what it looks like for each one of your clients to truly meet them where they are. Because one session is exponentially better than 0.
Yes.
It just is, right? Even though in our coach brains we're like, but we know 3 is optimal. It's okay. Be patient. They're getting better because they're doing 45 minutes where they were doing 0, right? Now they're going to be doing 90 minutes when you add 2 sessions, and then they're going to be at 120 minutes eventually, right? So I think we just need to, set expectations right there.
Absolutely. And Julie may never get to 3 sessions per week. She may be 2 sessions per week for the rest of her life, but that is still, as you said, exponentially better than 0 sessions.
Yeah. We'll get Julie there.
We'll work on her.
We'll
We'll work
talk
on
her into
her.
it.